always start with public audience, so I'd like to see like just an idea who's here for public audience. And we'll kind of start in the front and go around. And we have Joan Coe right in the front row, so I'm gonna let Joan Coe go first, and we'll move around the room.
Thank you.
And and if we time everyone for 5 minutes, so.
Joan Coe, 26 Wickham Drive. At the September 11, 2023 Board of Selectmen meeting, there was discussion pertaining to the omission of alcohol consumption in the additions of prohibitions to the ordinance with additions of vaping, smoking, and cannabis. Selectman Sean Askham stated that there was no need to add alcohol to the ordinance of prohibition on town property since the state already has laws against alcohol. The state law addresses prohibitions with minors and liquor and drunk driving. There are no prohibitions of alcohol consumption. There are prohibitions of alcohol in state parks unless permitted. There is no mention about prohibitions of alcohol consumption statewide. Where did Sean Askham receive his information? Sean Askham's background and knowledge of the stress placed on families living with alcohol addiction should promote the prohibition of alcohol on town property. The ordinance states, quote, "The purpose of this policy is to protect the health and safety of all individuals who use public property," end quote. Why does Sean Askham believe that alcohol consumption does not need to be protected by the town? Giving a lame excuse that they were given the charge of adding tobacco, vaping, and cannabis to ordinance voids any additions is ludicrous. There are health effects of alcohol consumption: liver damage, brain and nervous system damage, cardiovascular issues, gastrointestinal problems, increased susceptibility to disease, increased risk of cancer, and mental health complications. Alcohol consumption is the #1 health risk, and the Board of Selectmen do not have the guts to say no. The Board of Selectmen are the policy providers to the town and should provide the policies that protect the health and safety of individuals. Town manager executes the policy. This board has reversed their roles and thereby abdicating their responsibility to the people that elected them. Since Chief Bolter has assumed his position, he continues to micromanage all aspects of the police department. After many decades of asking the records employees for information on incident reports without incident, Chief Bolter has initiated a policy that requires me to receive the information from Lieutenant Chase, who has become my babysitter for information. Lieutenant Chase has many responsibilities, is not always available, and it appears that this is a violation of the union contract. The policy that Chief Bolter has initiated against me is controlling and punitive, which is an example of his management style. As a result of Chief Bolter's policy, I have initiated many freedom of information requests that result in, I think I missed a page here. No, okay. Okay, as a result of Chief I have initiated my freedom of information request that result in lengthy time fulfilling my request when a phone call to records and all others can do would be to take a few minutes of their time instead of hours of fulfilling my request. The Certus Consultant Report of Workload and Staffing states, quote, "The management of the property of the evidence unit has been challenging due to staffing. The records unit supervisor is also the property evidence custodian. While the custodian has put effort into maintaining the property and evidence function, there are opportunities for improvement in several areas. The department has adequate technology and equipment in effectively performing the records function. However, the workload is immense and requires 2 additional civilian record clerks. The records unit also has a large backup of workload that needs processing as current staff lacks sufficient human resources. After reviewing this report, why has Chief Bolter added more stress to the employee's workload? This reflects the micromanagement style of Chief Bolter and the ineffective use of staff. Chief Bolter's reasoning that it's the records room employees do not have the knowledge to transmit this information on records. My interaction with records room has always been with knowledgeable and receptive response. It appears that Chief Bolter does not have the confidence to allow the records room employee to transmit information to the public. This is a failure of management style. Chief Bolter initiated a no confidence vote from the majority of the officers. Chief Bolter is close to eligibility to retire. Deputy Chief Davis, with many years of experience and knowledge, would be the perfect replacement. Deputy Chief Davis has earned the respect of the police officers and would be a perfect fit for the police department. It appears that the interim town manager, Lee Erdman, has had a professional interaction with finalists from town manager Mark Nelson. Both Lee Erdman and Mark Nelson were employed by the city of Hartford at the same time. After lengthy interviews and interaction with the public, the Board of Selectmen should not make the same mistake a second time. Town employees expect the manager to provide a good working environment.
5
A
seconds.
respected town manager will bring highly qualified employees to work in our town and have fewer employees resigning from their positions.
Thank you.
Okay, the board decision is
Thank you.
critical to
Joan.
future of Simsbury. All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch and Twitter at Joan.co. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry I was over my time.
Thank you for coming
That's
back,
what you're
Sean.
sorry for?
Okay, so let's hear from someone else from public audience that's out there. We have other people here, if you wanna come on up, sure, second row. And you can state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Sally Rieger and I live at 9 Stodmore Road. I am speaking tonight as Simsbury's representative to the Lower Farmington River and Salmon Brook Wild and Scenic Committee. I'm not here to present the Wild and Scenic Committee's opinion on the selective alternative for the multi-use trail, but rather to remind the Board of Selectmen and the public of the town's role as a partner member of the Wild and Scenic Committee. The Lower Farmington River and Salmon Brook became part of the National Park Service's Partnership Wild and Scenic Rivers program when it was designated by Congress in 2019. The designation can only be given to a river with special resources of regional or national significance. The Lower Farmington and Salmon Brook were designated for the complex and varied geology of the Farmington Valley area, for their relatively good water quality, their rich biological diversity, the river corridor's cultural landscape, which includes archaeological, historical, and traditional uses along the river, such as farming, and recreation. And recreation includes the constituency of paddlers and other visitors to the river who very much enjoy observing its wildlife. A second requirement for designation is community support. Support arose from numerous meetings between the study committee and each of the town's relevant staff and their land use boards and commissions. Other meetings were held for the general public. The final step at the community level was a vote by each town's legislative body. In Simsbury case, that's the Board of Selectmen. And it was necessary for each town to support designation, and like the rest, Simsbury did that. When the Lower Farmington River and Salmon Brook were finally designated wild and scenic, Simsbury became one of the partner members of the Lower Farmington River and Salmon Brook Wild and Scenic Committee and appointed its own representatives to the committee, so I'm one of those people. Tonight, I want to remind you that the overarching goal of the Wild and Scenic program is to enhance and to protect those resources for which the river was designated. The Wild and Scenic Committee respectfully asks that the elected officials and town staff keep these special resources in front of mind in planning for any project involving the river and its corridor. It matters because an intact river ecosystem has much more economic, social, and environmental value to the community than a highly disturbed one does. And I will just add, some of these comments are repetitive for some people, and some of these comments will be new to some people because I know some of you were not here as either staff or elected officials during the period of the Wild and Scenic Study, which began in 2007 and ran through 2011. And if you haven't ever looked at it, you might want to go to the lowerfarmingtonriver.org website and take a look at our management plan, which has goals and priorities for protecting the river. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally.
You're very welcome.
Hello, my name is Susan Van Cleef. I live at 6 Mallard Circle, which is within Governor's Bridge. Thank you for giving me time to speak tonight. My comments tonight reflect my personal viewpoints only. I'm not speaking for other members of the Governor's Bridge community, the Governor's Bridge Board, or any other stakeholder in the East Coast Greenway process. For full disclosure, I have been present at meetings about the preferred route, and I have communicated with other stakeholders. I'm asking the Board of Selectmen to delay voting on the endorsement of the proposed route. I also did submit written comments, so if you're confused, I actually just was out of town and I thought I might not make it back. So I fully support building multi-use trails in appropriate locations. These trails enhance public health, recreation, and economic development. However, I feel the process for selecting an improved path for the Terriffill connector is moving too quickly. There's been little time for Governor's Bridge to weigh in, and there are environmental impacts on the Farmington River that need to be considered seriously. I have multiple concerns about the environmental impacts this route will have on the Farmington River. Development along the river is happening at a very fast rate. Even a multi-use trail adds stress to an already overbuilt watershed. This section of the Farmington River is absolutely the most beautiful and peaceful to paddle in Simsbury. It's just amazing. You don't even know you're in an inhabited place. And I know other stakeholders have submitted comments about the environmental impacts of the route will have on the river, so please consider those seriously. I don't want to be repetitive here. So now about my experience with the process at Governor's Bridge. On July 10th, representatives from Governor's Bridge had the first meeting with representatives from the town about the preferred route. The preferred route crosses a large forested section of the HOA property. At the meeting, an easement or sale was suggested by the town. The following day, we got a map of the preferred route. The map had no scale or no obvious scale, so we couldn't actually measure the distance the trail would be from the residence, and the map was not really specific or detailed because there has not been a lot of surveying done. So for the HOA, there was a learning curve for navigating the situation because it was unique to our HOA. The lack of details about the design and actual location of the multi-use trail makes realistic understanding of the impacts of the community almost impossible to gauge. The timeline was too short. I realize there's a catch-22 here, because funds need to be allocated for the design to provide owners in Governor's Bridge with details about the proposed trail so we can understand the impact on the community and decide how to proceed. But these funds can't be allocated unless the BOS endorses the preferred route. I don't have a solution for this catch-22. The suggested endorsement also had a little surprise in it, the one that was on the agenda. It said with the condition that the trail would be no closer than 20 feet to any inhabited home. And this was alarming. 20 feet is an extremely short distance. Another observation, I keep hearing, oh, Hazel Meadow learned to love the multi-use trail. Governor's Bridge is not Hazel Meadow. We own the property along the preferred route. It's a forest, not an old railroad bed. So please stop comparing us to Hazel Meadow. So before you vote on this endorsement for the preferred route for the Terriffill connector, I hope you'll ask yourself a few questions. What environmental impacts will this proposed route have on the Farmington River? Has the engagement process respected the owners of Governor's Bridge? How many of you have visited Governor's Bridge to see the approximate location of the preferred route compared to the residential structure? Would you want a multi-use trail 20 feet from your residence? And have you ever paddled that section of the Farmington River? Because it's unique and you can't really see it too well unless you're on the river. So there are multiple benefits for communities with multi-use trails, but focusing too much on the benefits and pushing aside the people affected by the construction and the environmental impacts is not respectful or beneficial to the process. So I hope that you don't vote on the endorsement tonight. Thank you so much.
What else do we have out there? Let's go into the back row. I don't know.
St Quinby, I live at 5 Mallard Circle in Terriffill. I would like to start with thanking everyone that's had their that's been involved with planning of the multi-use trail for the time and efforts. I am the oncoming president of the board of directors for Governor's Bridge, and I am the only one by our bylaws allowed to speak on behalf of the association. Other members of our communities may wish to comment about their own private thoughts. At this time, we do not feel there has been significant discussion between the town and the Board of Selectmen on concerns that Governor's Bridge community has. I am formally and respectfully asking that all decisions involving Governor's Bridge Association be delayed and made at a later date. Tonight, I am referring to the preferred route. I would like to meet with members of the Board of Selectmen and the town to better communicate our concerns. It is still unclear to us where the town is planning the trail to go, and we would like to know exactly where. The consensus of the association is that proposed trails would not get approved from the community and should have some revision to address the concerns of our residents. I will give out my contact information as needed to continue communication with the town. Please give us some time and postpone any decisions involving Governor's Bridge. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Selectmen. My name is Katie Kostolnik. I live on 19 Mallard Circle, also in Governor's Bridge. I want to make a brief comment about the East Coast Greenway project. I've emailed detailed comments, which I hope you get a chance to look at, but I'd like to request that you delay the vote for endorsement of this proposed path until additional research and investigation has been done. The proposed path cuts right through our Governor's Bridge community, requiring a right-of-way or easement to complete its route. I have an end unit on Mallard Circle, overlooking the beautiful wild and scenic river, and my unit is one of the closest, if not the closest, home to the proposed hip trails routes. I'm one of many residents who strongly oppose this pathway, as it completely eliminates the privacy and serenity of our community with strangers traipsing through our backyards, and will also have devastating impacts on the local ecosystems, environment, and wildlife. I understand that various town committees have been having discussions and meetings on this, but before moving forward with an endorsement, I'd like to invite the Board of Selectmen members to come to Governor's Bridge and walk the path where the proposed trail would go. A paper map and PowerPoint presentation just don't do it justice. The CROG presentation that you'll see tonight shows an image of an old railway berm that they want to build on, showing a wide, expansive gravel path. I've walked this trail many times. That is only a small segment of the railroad near Terriffill Park. It's actually, most of it has been reclaimed by the forest, which would all have to be clear cut and leveled to put this path in. As well, the CROG's proposal that the bike path should be 20 feet from any home is unacceptable. I'd ask the board members if they would want a bike path 20 feet from their living room windows, because that's where it will be, from my living room window. As a town dedicated to green spaces, sustainability, and the environment, I'm surprised that this route is being considered and frustrated that residents' voices and rights aren't being taken into account in the process. I'd like you to delay the endorsement and please come view this route in person to be fully informed before taking action. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Robert Dess. I reside at 14th Union Circle. I've been there for over 25 years now. Part of the reason I moved there, when my wife and I saw that kind of, we fell in love with the area. Just living out the back of that river and the scenic beauty of it. We've seen black bear walk through there, bobcat. My wife saw bobcat this year. It's a pretty majestic area. Two of my concerns. One, obviously, is the environmental impact on the floodplain. That is a concern. But the other concern too is the privacy of myself residing there. I looked at the proposals just now, and honestly, when I saw the 20 feet, I couldn't believe it. I just want to show you, I submit these pictures. This is 20 feet from the back of my deck. It's right in my backyard. And I would ask any of you, I do that teaching in the Bible, doing to others. So ask yourself when you go home tonight if you would want that in the back of your yard that close. I think the town of Simsbury is a little bit of a dilemma here because they're trying to please the floodplain environment and the residents in Connecticut Circle. I don't think it should be rushed. And I would honestly like to volunteer my time to actually get with your planners and work. Get someone actually boots on the ground between someone that lives there the Farmington Watershed Association and actually maybe walk these areas that you're talking about and actually look in with boots rather than an aerial photo. I think you get a much better idea of what we're dealing with and come up with a plan that would be work for everybody. And at the end of this meeting, I would gladly give you my name and my email and phone number and actually go out with some of your board members, the engineers, whatever, and actually take a good look at all these proposals before you wouldn't rush into this thing. I think we can find a solution. I'm not opposed to a bike path. I don't think many people are. I'm just speaking for myself, but where it's being laid out, how it's being pushed upon us in such a rush area, I think is a mistake. And it's something I think we have to take a step back and really get everybody involved, including residents like myself and in your circle. Okay? And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Wayne Costi, 6 Whitewater Turn. You're gonna see a picture of where I live in the presentation. That's called the pinch point. The path is not, I would say, within 20 feet of the proposed path isn't within 20 feet. It's within drooling distance of my porch, right? So I find myself aghast at what I have to say here. First of all, I love bike paths. I've ridden many of them. And to say that I have to say no to this one, it just breaks my heart. But the path has been put right outside my door, within 20 feet. There's a suggestion to move it 70 feet away, I think it is, but that puts it right over a very bioproductive vernal pool. Not really a good choice for people who are concerned about the environment of the salamanders, the frogs, and mosquitoes. Mosquitoes wouldn't mind, I'm sure. To me, the place where it should be is on top of the bulldozed crushed stone path that is on Simsbury open space. I've spoken publicly about how much I support the bike path. That's where I thought it would be. It's a shock to me that it's been put where it is. I understand it's a Hail Mary pass to see if it can be done, but it's not the appropriate place. The concerns about the river, the sensitive area is a little rings false, and that's not the right tone there. But because the alternative that was second on the list goes across the river at Terrifield Park and all the way on the other side through lands that are usually flooded in high waters, requiring almost 5,000 feet of a boardwalk. If it were to use this gravel path that has been put in there since 1983, it would need about 1,200 feet of boardwalk. So I also will be glad to work with the town, the Board of Public Works to move this forward, but I must say that I'm not willing to cooperate with this. And incidentally, am I allowed to pass out stuff here?
Yes.
So, I don't have that many copies of it, it's just here. This is, what you're gonna see is two of the slides that are most relevant from the PowerPoint. And on the back is an email to Adam Kessler that describes the property layouts that are called exclusive use zones. The Governor's Bridge has no authority to grant trespass on this except for potentially things like sewer lines, power lines, stuff like that, but not for public access. And it also has some of the quotes on the sections of our governing documents that describe the ownership. And with that, I wanna thank the Board of Public Works for moving this thing forward. But I think that the alternative that's been studiously neglected is the one that I've just outlined. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else here for public audience? Okay, and we have a presentation tonight where we will, I'm sorry, Amy, thanks, Hi.
Hi, Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm here, my name is Amy Petrus, I'm delivering these remarks on behalf of the Farmington River Watershed Association. Our, street address is 749 Hot Meadow Street, but I am actually a West Hartford resident, 171 South Highland Street, if you need that. So I did deliver these comments, but I do also feel that the first selectman should hear this in its entirety. Founded in 1953, the Farmington River Watershed Association is a private, nonprofit citizens group dedicated to preserving, protecting, and restoring the Farmington River and its watershed lands. Since 1986, the FRWA has been headquartered on Hot Meadow Street on the second floor of the Simsbury Free Library building, and we care deeply about our connection to Simsbury Center for these many years. The Farmington River Watershed Association would like to express our concerns about the proposed bike trail located adjacent to the Farmington River. For many years, FRWA has heard about the siting of this trail and its close proximity to the Farmington River corridor. As you may be aware, siting a paved trail near or along a riverside can cause many issues, and FRWA would like to ensure that the town is aware of these potential impacts. FRWA has concerns about this project and the manner it has been studied. FRWA's preferred trail siting would be along Woket and Floydville Road and meeting State Highway 189, connecting existing paths in between. This siting already has infrastructure options for leading bikers and other trail users across the river without disturbing any additional riverbank or building a bridge. As far as FRWA can see, in the PowerPoint presentation, only a slight version of this trail route FRWA is suggesting has been considered. The yellow dashed line in the presentation tonight. We feel this location was not fully vetted due to the desire of some community members to have a bike trail through Terriffill. FRWA would like to reiterate this preferred path because we believe it would be more cost-effective and least detrimental to the river and the community to place a path where the infrastructure already exists. So FRWA has additional concerns with the town continuing to pursue any new paths along or across the Farmington River. 1. Respect for the river. The Town of Simsbury Board of Selectmen voted to have the Farmington River designated as a wild and scenic river. This is a designation that only 0.5% of all rivers in the nation hold. Putting any bike trail into its riverbanks will further degrade the wild and scenic nature of the Farmington River corridor and likely degrade the river and the outstandingly remarkable values that define the wild and scenic nature of the Farmington River, including its exceptional water quality and biodiversity. Flooding. A good portion of this route of the proposal will be within the 100-year flood zone. This will be a constant problem for Simsbury to remove debris from the service and address flooding issues at the trail. For reference, in my document that I attached and sent to the board, it shows a FEMA map showing the boundaries of the floodplain for this part of Simsbury. Large portions of Simsbury's floodplains are undeveloped and should remain that way due to the topography of the town and their importance for receiving floodwaters. Wetlands are important reserve areas for floodwaters, and developing in them is not recommended, and it's heavily regulated. We will continue to get more extreme and more frequent storms due to climate change, and siting this trail in an active floodplain will cost the town time and resources in the future as it works to maintain the trail. Number 3, aquifer protection. The area being suggested for the trail also happens to be in the aquifer protection area on the north side of town. The Simsbury Aquifer Protection Map is inserted for your reference. FRWA has noticed that along bike trails in the Farmington Valley often get invaded with invasive plants and poison ivy. Often it becomes the practice of the town to treat poison ivy and invasive plants with synthetic pesticides. If a trail is sited on top of the aquifer protection area, there is a concern that these pollutants will enter the drinking water supply for that region. And I think it's served by the Terriffill Water Company.
Just the time frame, Amy, about a half a minute left.
I also have biodiversity. One of the reasons the Farmington River was designated a wild and scenic river is due to its rich biodiversity. This is listed in my comments, and I just also want to make sure that I get pollution. Paved bike trails need to be maintained and made safe for commuters and trail users. The trail will be cut widely to allow pavers and machinery to go into these sensitive areas. Once there, the trail will have to be salted in the winter to make it safe for bikers. Additionally, it has been FRWA's experience that bike trails need to be sited by cutting a lot of the nearby trees to protect the new trail from buckling due to roots. This further degrades the bike corridor that was once a wooded wetland and disrupts wildlife and their habitat. This will also add more stormwater and increase pollutants getting into the river and further degrade water quality.
Okay,
The
Amy,
bike path in Burlington had to be redone due to the buckling of the path from tree roots.
Amy,
And
you're
many
at
more
you're at
trees were
time.
removed.
Amy,
That's my last sentence.
I have to cut you off, just trying to be fair to everybody. You sent us your comments though, correct? So we can read
Yes,
them.
I just wanna make sure that everyone hears them from myself and
Okay.
not from someone else delivering them.
We have a full
Thank
room.
you.
Yeah, thank you. We have a full room right now, so we'll just have to move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to be rude about that. Anyone else here for public audience? Okay. We're now getting into the presentation section of the meeting, and the first item that we have up is on the high school bleacher project. We have Jason Casey here from the Board of Ed, and this has been a long coming project. The Board of Selectmen have heard questions from the public. We had funded this project back in 21-22 and added additional funding, and we just would want the public to hear where we stand on it from the Board of Ed.
Sure. So the bleacher project is close to completion. If you've driven by it, you'll see that the benches are all up in place. The goal is to have this ready for the homecoming game coming up on Friday, October 6th. The original contract deadline for this was August 18th. We removed the old bleachers back in February to give the construction company the most time we could possibly give them. The project, however, ran into some shipping delays, a number of different labor shortages, and the bad weather that we've seen. I'm happy to say, though, that the press box should be added at the end of this week. We have inspections scheduled for next week, so we should have our certificate of occupancy and be ready to go.
Thank you.
I have just a quick question. Is there, what was the delay, basically, is it just, from when we funded it originally in that budget to where we are today?
There were a number. The biggest delay came from the construction company we purchased the bleachers from. They construct them, however, they outsource the installation of them, they outsource the electrical contractors, crane work, so there's a whole number of different pieces that they don't have direct control over. We ran into issues where the installation company that serves the Connecticut region actually went out of business. We wound up having to get an installation company out of New Jersey. That was a big impact on time. Other issues were things like the steel galvanizing plant ran into labor shortages. And then the aluminum powder coating factory had problems. It's been a learning experience on all of these things.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? All right, thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
So homecoming.
Yes, that's the goal. I hope so.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is we have a presentation to talk about the memo of understanding with the Main Street Partnership. This is something that we've been working on with the Main Street Partnership in the town. And we have Sarah Nielsen and members of our board are here tonight to we're following the method that we used last week when the SVAA came. We have the memo of understanding, and if we have it as a presentation, we can do back and forth, ask questions, because we need to be in agreement on what the MOU says in order to move it forward and be on the same page. So that's why Sarah's here, and then we will ask questions and see where we stand.
Thank you very much for your time. Everybody knows my presentations are very brief. Okay, I want to recognize that my board members can stand up because some of them are gonna have to leave for other commitments. So I have several of my board here, okay?
Thank you.
So just a brief history about Main Street, and I'm not gonna go, I'm just broad brushing everything. Okay. We have had a 27-year-long award-winning public-private partnership with the town of Simsbury. I am the third executive director. There were two previous to me. And we've had, in my tenure alone, I've seen 5 changes for Selectmen. I've also seen the entire Board of Selectmen change over multiple times. But the one thing that has stayed constant and stable has been our relationship and partnership with the town. When I started, we went bank to bank. It was Simsbury Bank to, which is now gone, Webster Bank, because in the audience. We now encompass the entire town. Under Selectman Lisa Hevner, we actually started helping out any bricks and mortar business in Simsbury. So we've grown quite a bit from where we started. And we changed to become the unofficial economic development arm of the town, again under Lisa. We don't have members. So again, if you're a bricks and mortar business in Simsbury, we will help you. So very quickly, people tend to forget, in 2006, the Simsbury Main Street Partnership, along with the town of Simsbury, applied, and we became a Preserve America community, which is a federally designated community. And we still have highway signs that need to go up. But it was great publicity, and more importantly, it opened up grant opportunities for us. So we used this to apply for a $100,000 grant. It was a federal grant from the National Park Service. We married that with state grants and local grants. We created a $100,000 package, which we used to brand Simsbury. Those were our old brochures. We ran out of them. And ironically, and Steve Mitchell's in the audience, one of the things we did, even though we didn't have to because we felt biking was so important, is we funded that multi-use bike guide from the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail and the Farmington River Trail. So again, we took $100,000, we combined this, we had an entire branding process, and it isn't incidental that 2 years later, Simsbury started showing up on CNN Money Magazine's Best Places to Live.
Started showing up. I'm sorry, I didn't. That's right.
Yes, it still is, but it started after the impetus of the grants and also our branding. Schools are very important to us. We also created a school brochure. All of these brochures were used by multiple people, but it included realtors and businesses that were trying to attract people to Simsbury, both to live and also to open their business. Thanks to this recent Board of Selectmen, you know that we've updated the branding materials. We're able to do it at cost because we'd already spent $100,000, and so we already had photos and verbiage and all sorts of things. So we were really able to take this and update this for well under what it would have done if we had gone, and done it elsewhere. So that is our brand new brochure. I want to thank the Economic Development Commission. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen and all of the partners that we used to create that new brochure. And then the final thing people forget is we are the first and only town in Connecticut to be listed on the National Trust's dozen distinctive destinations. And we still are the only one in the state of Connecticut. That alone gave us over 500 media hits in 2 weeks, included print, TV, online blog. We were featured in the Boston Globe, we were featured in the Washington Post, so really gave, again, Simsbury publicity both locally, but more importantly also nationally. And then our founding father, Gifford Pinchot. Main Street and the town of Simsbury were a very big part of the PBS documentary, which was based on Gifford Pinchot. And we actually had the chief of the Forest Service come out and be our keynote speaker at Riverview when we previewed the film, which can still be found on PBS today. Youth are very important. So if you guys remember, again, I'm kind of back to memory lane, but also updating. We started partnering with the Culinary Arts program at the Simsbury High School, and we partnered them with the Riverview. They were bused there, they got credit, and they learned. Next. Fast forward to today, and I know that you guys all had received an invitation, and we had some of the Board of Selectmen attend. We have an award-winning program. It was started by my president, Rich Correa, with Bob Jeffers over 20 years ago, and he's the AP Economics teacher. And every year, we pick a different site in Simsbury, and they take maps, and we have speakers from all over, and they do a project. That is their final project, is their presentation. And thanks to Wendy and Heather, I know you guys, it was just an amazing thing, and we continue to do this every single year. So we still partner with the youth because it's incredibly important to see what their vision is for Simsbury as well. And this was an award-winning program also. Main Street writes grants. We have written more than $200,000 in grants from the State Historic Preservation Office. I work very closely with our amazing Director of Public Works to do a ton of improvements in the interior of Eaner Memorial Hall. Main Street also privately raised funds. We did all of the benches. We moved the
gold dome?
flag and we did the gold dome. We moved the flag for the veterans and made it more prominent, the gold dome, so the list goes on and on. So we pay attention to our historic buildings that are being used by the public. We do a ton of advocacy. COVID was I think the longest time for all of us. I will say, and the Board of Selectmen has seen, we received more than 100 emails, messages, letters, etc., for all of the things that we did to help keep our property owners and our Simsbury businesses in town. I cannot thank the Public Safety Subcommittee enough. It was partnerships with the Farmington Valley Health District. We were a pilot program going into restaurants and giving COVID shots to our restaurants and our diverse workers. So we were a pilot program for them. We gave out 40,000 masks. We did hand sanitizer, again, thanks to Tom Roy. When it was liquid gold and you couldn't find it, thanks to Fire Station, the COVID test, the at-home COVID test, when you could not get them online, because of our relationship with the state and public safety, we gave out about 500 to keep our businesses going. Thing, and I only mention this because it really is not me, it was the entire, really the town. But I did, Main Street and myself did win the Quentin Williams Hometown Hero inaugural award from Connecticut Main Street Center. And it was due to, in part, all of the things we did for COVID. We do lots of things that, other organizations do as well. So we do ribbon cuttings, we do business meetings, we do help, things like that. But the things that I'll touch on very closely, very quickly, I'm most proud of are the true economic development work that we do. So you guys remember we had our shuttered golf course, and Main Street and the town planner worked incredibly hard with the owner on what would be right for that site. Because without a recreation piece, he was going to go through a whole host of permitting. You saw what was happening on Nod Road, and there was not a guarantee. And we worked so closely with Kevin Casey, and I know a lot of you attended the ribbon cutting and grand opening where he asked us to speak, because we worked with him. Not only did we put Healing Meals in there in record time, which is an amazing organization, we worked to get disc golf open, and now they're really, really incredibly successful, Talcott Mountain Collective. And Bickford Aerospace and Defense. And Eric, I think you and I work, and Sherry worked most closely on this in the beginning. And then I know, thank you to Sean as well for stepping in. But you guys know that Main Street worked hard. We not only worked on behalf of the town, but we worked on behalf of the state. And we kept them in Simsbury. They had just moved their headquarters for their other company to Colorado. And everyone kept saying, they're not gonna leave Simsbury, they're not gonna leave Simsbury. They have 4 other properties that they own. They rent in Simsbury, okay? 4 other properties that they own in other states, including a 65-acre campus in California. They were getting ready to leave. And we worked with our local officials, we worked with DECD, we worked with the governor's office, we kept them in Simsbury. And not only did they rehabilitate and renovate that building, but they got so big that they turned around and they purchased another building. So we're in phase 3. They purchased 100 gristmill. They purchased it from a landlord who's having issues, so we cleaned up an issue. They now have over 400 skilled experts in Simsbury, 142,000 square feet of cutting-edge facility space set within 700 acres. We're conveniently located 2 hours away from Boston and New York, and they lead advancements in stage and firing separation, missile initiation systems, explosive transfer systems, et cetera, et cetera. These are high-paying, high-quality jobs. We are keeping, the minimum salary that they're starting at is $75,000. We are getting people living in Simsbury, working in Simsbury, and if that hadn't happened, there's a very good chance within the next 5 years we would have seen them go completely. Okay, so those are the things I'm most proud of. I don't want to go through everything. You will be here for
time.
Don't. The final things I'm going to say is, looking forward, we will continue our advocacy. I think you guys know we have a really great relationship with all of our state and federal legislators. We've had them come out on numerous opportunities, speak to the public, speak to the small business and property owners. We continue to work with the town. When we talk about COVID, one of the things we did with the governor is we fast-tracked outdoor dining. He came and signed that in Simsbury because we were one of the biggest proponents of keeping our restaurants open and making sure that they could stay open during a time when they couldn't see people in their dining rooms. They had to change the way they did business. And we didn't lose any restaurants during that period, so although 2 closed after, but we have new tenants. The final things I'll say, looking ahead, we serve on many things. We also serve on the planning committee for Simsbury Celebrates. I've sat on public safety. I sit on special committees such as the Economic Development Task Force, the Simsbury 350th Committee. And we also work on a range of issues, including we've helped improve cell phone service, again, thanks to the Public Safety Committee. We've done legislation that helps our business and property owners and residents. We fund parking studies, which have resulted in beautiful parking signs in downtown for our residents. So we do a little bit of everything for economic development. We've enjoyed our partnership with you. We would like that to continue. And if you have any questions.
Can I just say, everybody's busy and, I run a grocery store. My time is precious and I don't spend a lot of time in committees and things, but I've been on this committee for vice president for 10, 11 years now.
Can't get off.
And they won't let me off, no. But if it wasn't of value, if it didn't seem like it was serving the community in a way, I wouldn't be on it. I just don't have time for it. Neither do you. I know you're sitting tonight, you'd rather be with your families. But for me, to keep my business running, I've gotta be there. And so for me to be on a committee, to do what we do, there's gotta be a value. And I just see that it probably serves the community more than most people know.
So I was just gonna level set here. Thank you, Sarah. That was we appreciate all that you do, and a lot of what you do is not, we don't know. I mean, it's under the covers and it's not, it's happening below the surface. So what we're here to really talk about tonight is we're setting up a memo of understanding. We provide funding to the Simsbury Main Street Partnership annually. We've been giving them $50K a year. This year we made a condition that it would be dependent on the formation of a memo of understanding, which we also included in our goal setting. So we're trying to get that resolved so we can move forward with the MOU and the funding. We had an opening bid, I guess, of a MOU from the Main Street Partnership. The town came back with one with a lot more detail and involvement in it, I think, than the board of Main Street really wanted to engage in at the time. Sarah came back and kind of gave another proposal, I think worked on that with Lee to get something that we felt was, good for now to get you your funding to move forward. And then as we move forward, we know we're getting a new town manager. We know that we're looking at our EDC commission, that before the next budget or around that time frame, we can see where there might be improvements in that area. So I'm kind of just level setting there.
And I'm sorry, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Lee. So Lee and I took the document that you guys had, the document that we had, and I feel like we really worked it out and compromised and came up with a document that we felt really reflected the needs, and I wish we could keep him longer, by the way.
So what I'm trying to do here is, before we move on, because we have it in our agenda, to hear from board members who to work with the board or to have a discussion here to see if there's things that they feel are required in this version that we are gonna bring to a vote, and to see if there's consensus between the two boards, because it's a joint agreement. So I'm gonna open that up to members of our board to see if they have any comments on, we have, like I said, 2 versions of this, but the one that's currently, that we're looking to approve is the latest version that was the final one here. But if people have items, and that's what we're.
Yeah, I'm just confused. The SMSP draft isn't actually the SMSP draft. It's the one that we
It's the working
So
draft.
that's what had caught me off guard. It's the one that Lee and I worked on and then brought back to our respective boards.
So I'm just opening that up to anybody up here if they have anything that
Happy to
they
go.
would like to, oh, sure.
I would just like to comment, thank you for your work on it. I'm very much in support of it. I think $50,000 line item is one of our only line items that has a real ROI, and it's very small. And the work that you do, you talk to our businesses, you talk to anyone, you see what you did during the pandemic. It's beyond impressive. We're fortunate to have the Main Street Partnership, and I'm in support of this. So thank you for the work on it, and thank you for what you do.
Any other changes anybody would like to see if we bring it later in the agenda to a vote, just like we did with the ambulance?
I guess I was just a little confused with the different versions, knowing which one was we were looking at. first of all, Sarah, thank you so much for laying this out for everybody. You know, there were a couple of things that were important to me personally at MOU, and I just wanna talk a little bit about my intent in wanting to advocate for those things. First, it comes from a place of wanting to improve and enhance the partnership between the town and your organization and the collaboration. And then the other is around ensuring that we have an appropriate level of transparency, given that your organization is mostly funded with taxpayer dollars. I would love to hear your or your board members' concerns about having publicly noticed, publicly open board meetings, because that was one that was particularly important to me.
So we do have board meetings, they are open to the public. We have minutes, we provide minutes. We are different than a town committee, but we still operate the same as a chamber or anything else. We meet the second Thursday of every month at 8 a.m. So that is noticed, and I think we've been trying to find a home, so we've been alternating so we can do a better job of posting on our website exactly where it is, but the rest of it doesn't change. So there's not been a hesitation. Our meetings are open to the public, it's just they're early and people tend not to come.
Can I ask a follow-up? The reason that was in there was partially based on council's advice that potentially you're subject to FOIA as a result of the partnership.
So I understand that, but I will say this, so we've also talked to our attorneys and Ms. Coe is in the audience as well, who I think at one point tried to say that the Performing Arts Center was open to FOIA, and they're actually funded, and you have a much greater partnership with them than you do with Main Street, given the real estate, the other pieces, and they did not meet the criteria. I also think that it sets up a very dangerous precedent. We don't meet it's like 4 legs, you have to meet all 4 legs. We don't, neither does the Performing Arts Center, neither does any of these other organizations. And we're a true 501c3 nonprofit, and I wouldn't want to get away from that.
Don't disagree, but again, the advice of council was because your organization is substantially or nearly all funded by taxpayer dollars, or at least that's the understanding, that was the differentiating factor. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that's the advice.
Well, like I said, we
Again,
did talk to general counsel, and there's 4 different legs, and that is one.
Understood, but that one takes precedent according to DiCrescenzo from our discussions, but the only reason it was in there was to settle the issue so that there was no confusion. It was really just so that I think nobody's looking for a debate, it was just to settle the issue.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is there isn't an issue. They're open to the public, they're the second Thursday of every month at 8 a.m.
And I was gonna say, I think our town attorney did review the latest copy that we have, so I don't think there was.
Did we get an opinion from him?
I'll defer to Lee.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do we have an opinion?
We don't. Not a written opinion,
Shocking.
no.
Did we get one?
Could we get one? Sure.
We're clear on FOIA here, cause I don't wanna expose Main Street to any issues, I want the issue settled. Because I don't want it to get debated at the FOIA commission. Again, I'm not gonna bring it there, but I don't want to leave that up to ambiguity.
And is that I would ask that all the relationships where we fund and have relationships with 501c3s, are they all subject to the same FOIA requirements that we're asking?
I think potentially, yes, and I think that, again, DiCrescenzo said that because this is a substantial funding mechanism versus a minimal funding mechanism for other organizations, I thought that was the differentiating factor. But again, I'm not gonna speak for his opinion, that's why we should get it from him.
Okay.
The other question I had was around governance structure. I know there was an interest in this board to having some representation from the town on the Main Street board.
Yep, and we did address that with a liaison, which is similar to what you did with SVAA.
That's a starting point though, we intend to get a board seat once we
So
go ongoing appropriation.
and my board can speak to that, I'll be very careful. My board is a working board, they are a board of stakeholders. Right now, it is a very small board, we're at 10. And while we want this to be a partnership, it always has been a partnership. A board seat, a voting seat on a board changes the dynamic, and that would be something that my board would have to discuss, and at that point, my board has decided that that feels more like an ownership or the starting of it versus a partnership. We've never had that.
You know, I mean, it's fair, and again, not sitting here mandating it, but we do appoint 50+1 of PAC. And we intend to, I won't be here to settle it, we do intend to get at least one board seat on SVAA. So that is, we're trying to treat all organizations fairly in that regard.
We don't
But-
have a board seat on this.
but our intention is to get one
Well, so
before we
that
put them in
leads
the
into,
operating budget.
right, and that leads to, this isn't a finite copy, right? Like we have a new town manager coming on, we're gonna relook at this. If we do find out that the FOIA, then we will bring it back to the table, the same that we did with SVA. So my recommendation would be that we move this forward when we get to the, but if the consensus is that it requires change, we,
I have a question. We, in the town version of the agreement, there was a provision about performance measurements saying that SMSP would work with the town manager to develop a set of objectives, key performance indicators and impact outcome measures to be reported quarterly and annually. And there was also a provision about keeping the town manager apprised of potential economic problem areas and trends with quarterly updates, and both of those were removed. Is there a reason why you removed like the quarterly updates and the performance measures from these two between these two drafts?
So we changed it, if you notice, and Lee and I talked about it, and so you'll actually see, is it G, Lee?
Yeah.
Where it says, Lee and I talked about it, and he said, and I said, well, what does that entail? I mean, that is very broad based, and I don't know what that means. And he goes, Sarah, right now what we envision is it's the same stuff that you give to Connecticut Main Street Center. We wouldn't wanna make you be doing other things. So we've agreed on that, so it changed from what your language is. There's still a provision that says like, this is what we need. But Lee and I had agreed that it would go to what we do, which is actually annually for the Connecticut Main Street Center.
So does that tie in, I know that you've often mentioned that you're like the unofficial economic development arm of the town. So are to me, that the provision that was in the town version, I thought was geared towards that. Is that the same thing that you report to CMSC? I mean, because you know what I'm saying? It's almost like if you're the unofficial economic development arm of the town, I would think that there would be very specific goals and objectives that would be set with the town manager and that would follow the policy set by the board of selectmen and performance measures, because you're essentially saying that you're acting as
well, we're acting in concert. So I think I'll be clear though, what we had talked about was becoming the official economic development agency for the town of Simsbury. As the unofficial, all of those things aren't written down because we act in partnership, but we're not officially anything, we're officially a partner.
Right, but I guess what I thought we were trying to do was to move the relationship to having more clearly stated objectives that could be measured and discussed and reviewed on a more formal basis. Because part of what can be difficult with being an unofficial economic development arm of the town is that there aren't, if you don't have objectives out there, then it's hard to say that you're meeting them, right? I mean, how can we judge that the relationship is working? And I thought that was part of the goal of the MOU, was to formalize the relationship more. So I guess I'm not seeing how providing us with a copy of what you're providing, I don't know if what you're providing to the Main Street group as part of your annual reporting really addresses the very special close working relationship that we have here in our town, and specific goals and objectives that you would have with the town, right?
Let me just add to what Sarah said earlier, that, and as we did with SVAA, I view this as a first step, a beginning step. And we'll see what the report to Connecticut Main Street is. And if it doesn't address some of the activity areas and performance areas that are important to us, then we'll have a further discussion about what performance measures will be important to us going forward. But in my discussion with Sarah, in our discussion together, we thought this would be a good first step, and we'll build upon it in future years.
I think what I would like to get at here, maybe help you, is that I don't understand, I don't doubt, I don't question. But you may have a scorecard, if you will, to continue your your designation with the Connecticut organization, and they say, you've got an active board with 10 seats that are full. Do you meet once a month? Do you have a stated mission? Do you put out so that's all, we don't, so that scorecard that's measured by the oversight committee may not be aligned and provide us with metrics that help us understand that we're meeting in the middle and this partnership is being effective with something that's more measurable. So I don't wanna just assume that by stating, oh, well, we provide some sort of scorecard to the Connecticut, then that would clearly satisfy our needs. We can't be that shallow. The other thing I would say is so let's possibly make that a point that we do need some, let's assure that there's measurable actionable goals that deliver for the town of Simsbury. And I'm not saying they don't already exist. I'm just saying let's make sure that they are illuminated and they're measurable. The other thing too is that you're burdened by time. We all have, time is a precious resource. So I'm pliable relative to how often, is it once a year? That's possible if it's of substance, it's measurable and it's of value and it gives us good perspective. And it's done before budget is provided to us. So your Connecticut scorecard may be provided off cycle to budget, which doesn't really help the incoming board or the next board plan for, is your $50,000, is next year's $50,000 ask being met by measurable returns for the town. So make sure it's just timed well, because you're gonna give your presentation, I'll finish my sermon here, you're gonna give your presentation for your budget ask at budget time. That presentation may be more global, like your presentation earlier, versus actionable items that we ask for in a given year. Thank you.
So I would say to move on to sort of formalize something, there are a lot of moving parts. We have an economic development commission, and the chamber and the Main Street Partnership and the planning department all report into that meeting. We have a liaison from our board who reports into that meeting. So, I think for us to change the criteria on Main Street, in order for them to get the funding that we've been providing them for a long time, there are a number of moving parts here, and I don't see why we decided this year to hold Main Street Partnership hostage for the money with an MOU to formalize something without looking at the other moving parts in the chamber and the Economic Development Committee and how that whole umbrella looks.
Well, and the other thing, and the final piece I'll mention, which Lee and I put in there, which is the last piece, is that, so normally we get our funding, it's available July 1st, okay? And it wasn't done this year because of new conditions. What we tried to do this year is compromise. Did Main Street get everything we wanted? Absolutely not. Did the town get everything they wanted? No. This is a streamlined version for now that represents what we have been doing with the town with success. And you can say, yes, did we meet measurables? But I will say that every year we have made our case for why we should have a specific budget amount, and every year that acting board of selectmen has agreed or disagreed. They've agreed, and we move forward. So I get what you're saying, Chris, but we're kind of backed up against a time crunch. We can't change our ask, and I thank Eric Wellman because he had written an email saying, listen, I want the MOU, I believe that we have to have a stronger partnership and it'll be a chance for us to potentially get more funding. But none of that is available.
No, I think you're mishearing me. What I'm saying is that I'm picking up your thread that this is a work in progress document. I'm saying what I'm asking for is that gets built into this work in progress document. It's not an absolute that must happen today and I see it finalized before you get your $50,000. That's not what I'm saying.
So can I
Okay, so then I misunderstood. Thank you.
So I would just I'm gonna make a suggestion. I don't know if the wording is proper here, but on this item G, right? So this is good through June 30th, which is till our next budget cycle. The performance measurement was, it says the SMSP will provide town manager's office their annual report, and they provide to Connecticut Main Street Center in January. And I guess we could put a caveat in there and determine in consultation with the town manager if there's any additional needs and requirements as a result of the seeing what's in that report, since we haven't gotten it yet. Is that something that
Something that the boards would mutually agree upon, because I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it would be
Again, my question to Lee was just to make sure that we're being transparent and you see what we're doing, but that we're also not adding like so much more work to create a report, like using things that we already have.
I would say in agreement, if there's a need that's found that this report doesn't provide.
I can't speak for my board, that would.
And
All depends
if
on what
that's
you're
an
gonna
issue,
ask for.
if that, yeah, I don't
mean,
know,
it's like
I'm just thinking, is
saying-
that an issue? It's not, I'm hearing that as an issue, if it's not an issue, then we don't need to add it. I'm just
I think what Sarah said
suggesting.
is if it's mutually agreed upon.
Yeah.
Mutually agreed upon, if it's not,
Does that meet, remember your
Push
need
back
of
from either side.
performance reporting, or Chris, you were talking about that too?
Yeah, I don't have much more time on this board, so I just wanna get some thoughts off my chest, and that is that I'm 100% love your organization, right? And I think it serves a great purpose. The reality is the position that the people that I feel that sit in this chair is that we have $100 million budget, right? And 99.9% of it's already spent. We have very little pliability. Let's be very honest, okay? We have 12 people that vote on that budget. People think it's 6, the Board of Finance votes on it too. It's analysis paralysis and it's over administration. So we have $100,000, the reality is we've got like $100,000 that this group of 6 people moves shells on a table and tries to find homes for. And the light that gets shined on our discretionary spend by the Board of Finance is very intent, and it's gonna continue to be intent, specifically under the current leadership. So I am trying to put, what I hope that you guys evolve to is a document and a partnership that allows this board to say it's measurable and actionable, and we can give you your 50,000 every freaking time, and we can justify. That's what my goal is. It's not to deny you of it. It's to provide the vehicle to give it to you. Because we have such little, we have so much, people think we're playing with money, we're playing with almost nothing. It's all committed. And that's what I want you guys to honestly know.
Can I ask a question? You guys already voted on it in February. It was supposed to be allotted with an MOU in place. We submitted that in May. It got waylaid through lawyers and other things, and here it is now almost October. I think what Lee worked with Sarah on, and I'm gonna give 100% the credit, this is a stopgap until we have a permanent, and I agree with everything you said, we have to have some measures in place, but to say what those are, let's wait for the next budget cycle to work on those. I'm the treasurer of this organization. You don't give all the money to Simsbury Main Street Partnership.
Didn't say
It is a partnership.
Majority.
We do
You do give
the
more,
largest
yes,
allocation,
but
the majority.
the ROI of your small amount for what this organization does is 100-fold.
It is, but it's also, I don't want to debate because I'm a big supporter. Remember, it is a particular group that's defined, it's distilled down to a small community. No doubt that every one of you, our community is what it is because of all of you. But it is so important to us when we allocate money to a broad group, we are comfortable doing that. So we need to be so precise and certain with why we give you your money. That's all on that. And let's be honest too, the initial, so yes, we did get, and I will shut up here. We did get the
gentleman for Virginia has run out of time.
We did get the initial draft, you're right, back in May. But you got a draft, like every dialogue, it's heavily skewed towards someone else. And so we have to talk and come. It's like the show Pawn Stars. I'll sell for 50, I'll sell for 175.
To me, I think it is a little confusing to have a version that says town version.
Yes.
And a version that says SMSP version, but the story behind SMSP is, well, this is the version that you worked with Lee on, because it makes.
You were confused at that too.
Yeah,
I mean,
that happened last week too.
Yeah, that was very confusing.
So,
happened last
so when you compare these side to side, there are a number of provisions that are clearly in the town version that are not in the version that I think we would take action on tonight, which would be the SMSP version, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So the town version that's included, we're not taking any action on, I guess it's just included.
It's comparison.
for comparison.
You don't see what we initially put off in May, that is not in your packet.
Right, it was,
Again, as I mentioned to Lee, the SMSP version is not, that's why I had emailed them, I was like, this is not the SMSP version.
yeah, so I'm just gonna, this was a decision made by the town to include include the town's version and the draft final version, which is what we did last week with SVAA, just to show different perspectives and different requirements that we now hope to work towards, I believe, which we have done with the SVAA and I believe that we will do with the Main Street Partnership. So with that, I would like to move forward, like past the presentation stage. And when we get to unless somebody has anything specific that they want added to this I can't keep saying that. To the MOU as it stands, speak now or vote later when we vote against it.
No, I
Or for
agree,
it.
I agree
Okay,
with your
that's-
I
let's
agree
just
with your
move
amendment, and just my final comment is my comments and questions are not motivated by anything that I feel should or shouldn't be in here. I think you're gonna increasingly have a challenging time getting through the Board of Finance when these agreements are different for different organizations. That is my only point, and then I think we should strive for consistency for SVA, for Main Street, for everybody, whether there are board seats or not, we have to be consistent, that's all I'm really looking for.
They will be picked apart.
So that's really what I'm
Okay,
driving at.
then my final thought is, if you're going to make them consistent, then make sure they're true partnerships, because sometimes the first versions of the town's MOUs have felt more like a hostile takeover or something that is not a true partnership and is not reflective of the many years that we've all had relationships with you.
The intent was to be equal to all organizations, we sent the same draft over to SVA.
Okay, we passed it. So, okay, I think we're all set. And we can move on to the next stage of our, thank you, Sarah, thank you, Main Street Board. Thank you. So now we have the East Coast Greenway Study Preferred Alternative Endorsement presentation. I will invite up Tom and Rod.
We're gonna do a little rotating of some different people. Next up is gonna be Caitlin Palmer, but first off, I guess I wanna say this with all sincerity. I appreciate so many of you coming out today. I know that there's some challenges associated with this, and I think Susan may have said it best, is that there's a catch-22. We have not found a perfect solution. We are trying to find the best solution that we can. We've had a pretty healthy sized team working on this. The work that's been done has been by a team put together by CROG. Matt Hart, the executive director, came out today to watch this presentation. Caitlin Palmer is going to introduce the overall CROG study and the larger goal. And then Mark Jewell from VHB, who's one of the planners that has worked very closely on this entire study, is going to go through how we got to this conceptual, can't stress that word enough tonight, conceptual alignment. And then we are all going to be here for your questions. Fair enough? Caitlin?
Did you wanna cover agenda?
Extra points for speed here.
Alright, so really quickly, I think Tom pretty much covered what we're gonna be talking about today. He's handling introductions. And then I'm really gonna kick it over to the team to cover the rest of the agenda to give you some context on the study area, go over the alignments that we looked at, and discuss that more in detail with you. And you can go to the next slide, I think. Okay, never mind, it's okay. This will be, Mark and Phil will take it over for me at this point, but I just wanted to again thank the board for your time, and again also to the residents, recognizing your care for your community is evident. So real quickly, just wanted to level set this project just in the broader context as well. CROG wears many hats. The Capital Region Council of Governments, we work in anything from land use and economic development, shared services, and then we also have the transportation hat, which is why we're here for you today. We have long been involved in sort of how and where transportation funds are spent within our region, and are incredibly invested in our trails and bike ped networks and building that out. So it should be no surprise that completing the East Coast Greenway has been a priority for us as an organization, as well as on behalf of our member towns. So as I said, Simsbury is part of a larger effort. For those of you who are not aware, we are also doing planning work simultaneously right now in the towns and cities of Bloomfield, Hartford, and East Hartford. So that's happening concurrently. And then once that's complete, I guess that's actually this slide, that's appropriate. We will have a largely complete network from New Haven right now to the Rhode Island border. So that's the 12-mile gap that you see on the slide right now circled in red. That's the big one for us in the capital region that we're really concerned with closing. And that our hope is that eventually, once we get past the planning phase, CROG has successfully secured $16 million in funding through federal programs to close, design, and construct the trail in other locations in our community. So we don't want this to just sit on a shelf. We would like this to move forward. So for the planning part, though, I would happily turn over to VHB to come on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Jewell. I'm a senior planner with VHB, engineering consulting firm out of Wethersfield, Connecticut. And it's great to see so many faces that I've seen before, and appreciate the time. I'll try to go through this quickly. The East Coast Greenway study, as Caitlin mentioned, is a 4-town, East Hartford, Hartford, Bloomfield, Simsbury, and we're going to focus on Simsbury tonight. Last I was in front of most of you was on March 30th in Terriffill. And so you'll see some similar slides to that presentation, but I want to get into a little bit more detail, especially for the full board and for those viewers who might be online or elsewhere. So quickly, the goal here is to identify a practical and feasible alternative that accomplishes, and I know these slides are a little busy, so I'm not going to read them to you, but essentially we're looking for a route that people can recreate on, transport themselves, primarily off-road is the goal, and that children can use safely, that it connects important destinations, it connects downtown with Terriffill. We want it to be well-designed and attractive, and I can't emphasize that part enough, that this really can be a showcase project, an environmental showcase, if we all put our attention to it. And that will protect the river environment that so many people spoke eloquently about. Again, I want to go over sort of where we've been. We've been looking at this for about the last 10 or 11 months. And some of the key takeaways that I want to mention from the March 30th meeting, again, there seemed to be support for the use of rail beds. There was a lot of comments about the west side of the river. It's clear that people had concerns about environmental impacts. And I every time I hear it, I cringe because we don't know what they are yet. Everyone's concerned about them, but we don't know what they are yet. And so right-of-way issues came up, of course, with Governor's Bridge and other property owners that are impacted potentially. And then there were some other meetings that took place along with the National Park Service and the Farmington River Watershed Association, who you heard from during the public comment section of tonight's meeting. So, real quick, we were looking at this is the study area. B, trying to find a route from A to B. B is the same and is the starting point for every alignment you're going to see tonight. B is where the current trail that, if folks know, up in Terriffill, that's under construction, almost done. It ends at the intersection of was it 189 and Main Street extensions. Every alignment we talk about tonight that's the starting point. And then how do we get down to the existing Farmington Canal Heritage Trail? So I just wanted everyone to be clear on where we're starting and where we're trying to get to.
Can I just ask a quick question on why that's A? Because A actually goes all the way up to Massachusetts. That's not the only place A exists.
That's true. That's true. Perhaps that circle should have been bigger, clearly, because we have one alignment that goes up into Granby.
Right, the green line goes all the way up to Massachusetts, right?
And one of the alignment options does go north.
I'm not being critical, but A is really big.
Yeah, correct, yep. B is the starting point, if you will, or the ending point, and then trying to get over to the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail in some way, shape, or form. And we're building on, for those who've been around as long as I have, talking about this trail, you know that there have been previous studies done, and we're trying to build upon that as well. So quickly, in the legend there, you'll see 9 options, 1A and B, 2, 3A, B, C, 4A and B, and 5. And I'm gonna try to run through those quickly and sort of describe them each, and I'm gonna go out of order, but so go ahead. But before I do that, I wanna talk about how our process has informed our screening criteria. You know, we heard from the public at the March 30th meeting, and that helped inform our selection criteria and the matrix that gets run through. But I wanna stick to a high level for a moment. I know this is a busy slide, but essentially I just want the focus to be on the main criteria. Maximizing off-road facilities, traffic safety, connectivity, right-of-way impacts, environmental impacts, and economic opportunity. Those are the major headings, those are the scoring criteria. And when all these alignments were run through that, that's how the scoring took place. So I just want everyone to sort of look at that, and I'm happy to entertain questions about the minutia in the spreadsheet later, but
Hard to see.
yeah, I know, it's, you don't even need to look at that, we can provide that table to you if you really want.
I think we're praying that he does not go into the minutia of the spreadsheet.
We can see what it looks like, right?
That's just one spreadsheet. So
Don't threaten these kind people,
I
Mark.
know, I know, they've been so kind to me, so I appreciate that. And I have to say, if I could just do a sidebar for a second here, I do this all the time, all over the state, and it's extremely meaningful and makes me smile that we can have disagreements in Simsbury and people come out. That's clearly, I don't have to tell you folks, it's an engaged community, a knowledgeable community, and I love the fact that we have differing opinions and it's still civil. So I appreciate that as a planner who's trying to build public support and hear the opinions and present them to you in a neutral way. I appreciate that. So I'm gonna jump out of order, I apologize. I'm gonna talk about segments 3A, B, and C first. And I have my fancy laser pointer here, but I will try to describe it. For those who live up that way, you'll know. But again, I wanna talk about that. The first section I'm gonna mention is the same for every single alignment. So I just wanna talk about that. That B point, if you will, which is over here where the green trail, right there, that was the B that we talked about. So every alignment tonight starts there, and it goes behind the businesses on Main Street Extension, behind Cracker Barrel. There's a 1.6 acre parcel of DOT land back there. There's no private right-of-way impacts proposed in that location. And essentially, the alignment goes behind those businesses to the cul-de-sac, if you will, that is Main Street Extension. And then from there, that is the only piece of trail, and it's true for all the alignments, where a multi-use trail doesn't fit. The road's too narrow. So what we're proposing there, and this is true for every alignment, is a public sidewalk and on-street markings for bicyclists. For that very short distance, from that little curved cul-de-sac, if you will, to Terriffill Park.
That's on the state road?
That's on the town road. Town road, yeah. That's the entrance road, if you will, to Terriffill Park. Once you get to Terriffill Park, if you're familiar with the green gate that gets closed daily, that gate, you know there's a bit of a rise as you go into the park. That rise is the railroad berm. That is the actual railroad berm. If you stop your car and you look out your passenger window as you're going in, you can see the old railroad piers in the river to the right. And if you look to your left, the railroad berm is there. Overgrown with trees, as was mentioned by one of the public comments. So, getting back to 3A, B, and C. As you follow that alignment, you get into Terriffill Park, and then you turn south, and one of the alignments follows the railroad berm, and then comes out to the public streets that are within the condo association. And we heard from various public comments on that, and it didn't seem to be welcomed with open arms to use the public streets out front. And then that alignment continued down and it exited the condo association at the existing gate that's closed permanently on 315. And then the alignment comes down 315 as a side path, right behind the guide rail, so to speak, down to that curve that nobody likes by Quarry Road, and then stays along the river. We looked at many ways of trying to correct or modify that curve. And essentially what it turned into was, there's 2 residential homes there. And it was extremely impactful to one, if not both of those properties, if not major impacts to those to try to realign and realign that curve. So again, coming down, and that gets us to Curtis Park, to the Curtis Park Trail that we all know about, and then to the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. The red line, which is the 3A, stays along the river and goes the full length of the riverbank behind the condo association and then comes out to 315 near the fire department. I believe that's a pump station. And that is where we heard from residents that there is one condo that is extremely close to that alignment. Even though the town has some property back there, that is extremely close. And so we heard that, and you know, took that to heart. So but that was 3A coming down the dark red line. Using the streets within the condo association that I mentioned was the sort of the dark brown there. And then these alignments down here are the last one, these sort of brownish dark ones down here, and they were studied before. And all of those had major challenges. As you can imagine, that's all flood zone, floodplain, multiple boardwalks, multiple bridges would have to go in there to make that a reality. And so for those reasons you see there, 3A, B, and C did not score very well. Next slide, please. Jumping to 4A and B. These are the two that, again, begin at the same spot and go to the entrance of Terrifield Park. From there, we use the rail bed for a very short stretch, and then we go up an existing, I'm sorry, my hand's so shaky there. We go up the public easement, the town open space parcel. We go right up to the high school, the elementary school. And that blue line follows right out to Winthrop Street and then down Church Street to I believe it's called, sorry, I apologize.
Church Street Extension.
Yep, and then to the Willow Arms apartment complex. And then slides right down the property line as proposed here of Willow Arms and gets back to the toe of the slope behind all the homes on Hayes Road. And you can see that blue line just following the back property line, essentially, of all those residential homes on Hayes at the toe of the slope. And then you see the split, the two lines that split. The issue here and the reason, one of the reasons this didn't score so well is though both of those blue lines are 100 vertical feet down to Quarry Road, down to 315. And so how do you get down at 5% grade to accommodate for ADA compliance? And there's right-of-way impacts in there as well. And so that was extremely challenging from engineering standpoint, let alone right-of-way impacts as well. And so those alignments, those variations on that, on the 4 or 4B did not score so well. Although I will say that I think there was consensus, if I could be so bold as to say there was consensus on one item, which was connection to the elementary school seemed important. Opening up the opportunity potentially for classrooms to take the 2-minute walk down to the river environment, where I don't believe that occurs today, was a huge opportunity I think everyone was open to. So the next slide, please. Now 5, this is the most northern one, it's the longest one. It's I believe the one of the more expensive ones. This, as you get to Terrifield Park entrance, as I mentioned, and you look to your right out of your passenger car window and you see those piers in the river, this proposes a new bridge on those piers over the river. And then when you get to the local road on the other side, there's another bridge that's needed over that road following the railroad berm. And then it crosses Route 189 at grade. That would be the proposed crossing. Then you continue on the railroad bed. However, there's a development there, subdivision development, that's gone in and taken that railroad bed out. So instead of that being a straight line, you see it curving around the backside of that development until it gets back on the rail bed. You see the straight part of that yellow line? That again is back on the rail bed. Continuing north.
So construction of a bridge, oh my goodness.
So and because you can't use, I mean, you're crossing a major street, you know, that I drive fast on. And and but the bridge, the existing bridge there, you can't apportion part of that possibly, is that just because of the speed of traffic, is that why?
So very astute observation and good question. There are challenges with that. It's a DOT road, first of all.
Which we just built a trail on.
Yes, and with the correct horizontal separation. That's the key.
And nice
I mean,
plantings.
let me say it a different way. We can't use 189 to solve this problem
Um
and then just build an extension into Jarfield Park?
I won't
You
say
got a-
you can't.
you
It
got a
didn't
road there already.
score very well
Okay.
using the criteria.
But when you said that that's a very, I don't wanna derail you, you said that there's a very costly, when I heard bridge, I thought that would be the highest cost portion, the construction of a bridge.
If you use 189, you don't need a bridge. Yeah.
Look at where we're going, Sean. So that was my sort of what we're leading the witness. So is the majority of the cost in the yellow, the construction of the bridge? Or is it also just costly in general, the whole rest of it?
So if I don't know, I don't wanna get too deep into cost, but if we're just talking generalities,
about that.
these trails are costing today about $2 million a mile on average, statewide.
Including
Nationally.
189?
And that's with average number of bridges and structures and such.
Forget the bridge, put it on the road, it's still $2 million a mile?
Perhaps not. However, there's multiple structures on the yellow alignment. As I go through it, there's two
I'm not talking about
bridges.
the yellow line, I'm talking about 189, the state highway, which we just put the trail on.
Right. The bridge does not accommodate a multi-use trail right now.
Okay, just,
Yeah, the shoulders aren't wide enough. They don't have the
so
separation.
you looked at it, that's
Yeah.
all I'm saying. Alright,
Yeah.
fine.
It just
And there's
seems
many
odd,
other
we're not
issues
using
too about 189 as you go up all the residential, the section that's being built today on 189 crosses no residential driveways, you know, no intersections, et cetera.
I mean, we put sidewalks on people's front yard all the time.
Right. And they yell at us for having to shovel snow, I know. But so just continue to go through the yellow alignment. I just wanna make sure I highlight the structures. It's the longest alignment, which makes it a little bit more expensive and difficult. But also when you finally do get up to Holcomb Road and come down to Floydville Road, there's a bridge over the river there as well. Again, not wide enough. You would have to do a bridge widening project or a separate standalone pedestrian bridge immediately adjacent to it. For bridge inspection purposes, DOT does not like adjacent parallel pedestrian bridges to be that close to the roadway bridge so that the bridge inspectors can get their equipment over the shoulders and such and under the bridges. So there's little details like that. I don't wanna get again into the weeds. But that goes down Floydville Road and connects to the Farm to County Heritage Trail. So that's alignment 5. But again, it didn't score very well and we'll get to the scores in a second. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with 3 remaining ones to describe. And they're the 3 highest scoring ones. And that would be 2, 1A, and 3A. So 3A we talked about. That was the red line that went squeezed right behind the riverbank and that one condo property owner. And then out to 315 down around the curve to Curtis Park. 1A is next slide please. Nope, sorry, back up, yeah. So the dark purple is the one that I believe Wayne, I think you were mentioning. That is also a former rail bed. The abutments are no longer there. The property on the west side of the river is extremely wet. And you have to get off the rail bed slightly as it transitions from purple to pink, if you can follow me. Here, this is would all have to be structure, like multi-thousand feet of elevated structure of some type. And then when we checked with the FAA, to meet their minimum offset requirements at the end of the runway, it pushes the trail into another 100-year floodplain of this brook. But again, I wanna focus just on the dark purple here. So you come across on a new structure and then come down. This entire length would have to be on would all high likelihood have to be on structure. Because of the wetlands, which is why I didn't score so high.
That's the 4,500 feet.
That was mentioned previously, I believe so. And that gets you down to this rail bed. So I don't think it's a big surprise that alternative 2, which is the orange, is the most practical and feasible alternative. As Tom mentioned, there's no perfect alignment, but the orange alignment, again, starting at Terrifield Park, it uses the rail bed. And some of the previous public comments are correct. That rail bed is not 100% intact. There is some erosion, there are some gaps in it that would have to be, reconstructed. But essentially, using a previously disturbed area, the rail bed comes down behind the condos, and then just before that really tight squeeze spot I was mentioning, behind on 3A, we cross the river before we get to that. So that's avoided.
Can you explain then at what is that version, at what is its closest point to any dwelling?
So on the orange line?
Yeah, the one that you're saying is the
Yes.
highest score.
Yeah, so I'll answer.
And a couple slides.
Yeah, we have that, I have that slide on that
Sorry.
coming up, no problem. I'll get to that. So I just want to describe the alignment so everyone knows. So then it crosses the river, then the railroad berm on this side of the river is also privately owned. And we impact that private property owner as well. Next slide. That's what it looks like on the opposite side of the river. I do have the 1934 aerial showing the railroad bridge that crossed at that location. But here's what it looks like on the opposite side of the river. Next slide. This is just a quick rendering of what it could look like. Everyone's seen this before. Next slide, please. You can keep going. So this is a boardwalk that DOT recently designed and constructed in Cheshire, Connecticut, on the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. That's a concrete structure with, I think, an H15 loading, so that can hold some major equipment. And that was also through a wetland there.
How many feet how long was that?
That was so it was a boardwalk onto some solid land, and then another boardwalk. The two pieces of boardwalk, I think it was a couple thousand feet.
Okay, so it's not.
Very expensive. So this is a picture of the existing abutment, the former railroad abutment, on the condo association side of the river. And the reason I have this line, this line here sort of shadowed in green, is because I want to try to impress upon the board here that we don't have an exact alignment. We have a zone. And honestly, if we're being real, it's the regulatory agencies and the town and the DOT probably together who are deciding where within that zone the balance is. You're balancing floodplain and wetland impacts with cultural resource impacts and archaeological resources and endangered species of concern. All that stuff comes into play when you're trying to, finalize something. I hesitate at the planning level, at the conceptual level, to talk about exact measurements. But I appreciate the question and we'll get there. So next slide. So here's our closest pinch point. This is at 6 Whitewater Turn. And Wayne's been very gracious and that's his home. And I've been on his porch and his back deck. And
I see him drilling there.
Yeah. And so we took a measurement, and it's 20 feet off his deck post, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30 off the house itself, but the deck post, right there, it's 20 feet, it's close. And so obviously, that's if we're trying to stay high and dry, if you will, on the railroad berm. If you want to push it off into the side slope, now we're talking about potential structure or bringing in fill or whatever the case may be. But at the bottom of that slope off his deck is a vernal pool. And so now you jump to the other side of that and you're probably into boardwalk. And so next slide. And so I just want to point out that, we hear the concerns. We're trying to come up with all the various ways that, that they could be mitigated. But I just show this for the sake of demonstration is that, if that was not amenable and Wayne made it clear that it's not to him, that, you know, you could go around on a boardwalk structure, for example. That's the unit that the alignment as proposed would come the closest to. I know there's some other folks that mentioned it, but I think they're more like 50, 60 feet away. But I will say that when this alignment, just big picture, when the alignment enters the condo association property, and then when it leaves the condo association property, it's a total distance of about 2,300 feet. In that 2,300 feet, the width from structures to the river ranges from anywhere from 800 feet wide to 200 feet wide at the narrowest, let's say. So somewhere in there is what alignment 2 is looking for, somewhere in there. And next slide. And then up to Terrifield Park, and you can see, as I already mentioned, back down to the Main Street extension where we want to try to connect to some businesses. That's an important aspect of the study as well. And so I know the town's doing a lot. Yeah, sorry.
I have a question. So when you're talking about like the zone, and I think the numbers you just threw out were like, you said 800 feet, 200 feet, okay. So like essentially what you're saying is that the exact placement of where the trail would end up being would not necessarily be as close as 20 feet from
No.
the structure?
Heavens no, no. We're
like-
so early.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we can circle back to this when we get to it, but I'm pretty sure I saw that number in there. I don't know if that is in the resolution.
It was in the resolution.
I mean, so like, why would we put that in there if the reassurance is that we would never have to be that close, then why would we? It seems like we would not want that in the resolution because that seems really close.
If I can jump in on that one, we actually have a couple options. We could take that number out of the resolution, one, or we could set a different number, whether it's 30 feet or 40 feet, a number that you're comfortable with. And I think there was also potentially, we have a slide which shows Wayne's deck with the proposed trail, so you get to have an understanding of what it looks like in perspective. The other thing that is a factor is you are dropping away and there's some slope differential there which helps. But again, I fully understand as a property owner the challenges, and that's what, you know, I think Mark's done a great job of telling you it's a zone. I keep teasing him that it should be done in watercolors because it's very vague and this is conceptual design, and I think you're gonna get to where our next steps will lead us to answering some of the very important questions that everybody has here.
I just think my concern would be, we're hearing that it's a zone and we're hearing that in the presentation. And then when you get away from it and what you're left with is a resolution that in black and white says 20 feet. People are not going to, they're gonna say, well, this says, 20 feet and it's not gonna.
Yeah, we were looking to give an absolute no closer than number. That's it. So it's meant in order to, again, pick the number that you're comfortable with, if you're comfortable, to set an absolute barrier of no closer than, as opposed to leaving it, because again, the final design may be done by Mark, it may be done by DOT, it may be done by the town of Simsbury.
Okay.
But we wanna make sure that resolution provides you a level of comfort as to what the town is or is not committing to.
Is it fair to say though, Tom, that with increasing restriction, meaning further away, comes potential increasing cost?
There is potential for cost. One of the things that's interesting in terms of the evaluation that they did, cost was thought about, clearly, you know me. But right now, we are looking that this would be primarily a grant funded project, especially with the East Coast Greenway designation. That's critical to keeping the cost affordable on this project. The other thing, not to steal Mark's thunder, is this is so far away from construction. It's not something that we're talking about next year or the year after. Best case, I'd say 7 years. More realistic would be closer to 10.
Right, because the number of grants and the volume of those grants we'd have to string together are
It's a
substantial, right?
complicated project. There are significant issues that need to be evaluated carefully. And again, this is really the first step, which brings us back to the catch-22 of we can't answer the questions until we start progressing down the road. One of the things we met as a team before this presentation, one of the things that's important to let you know is as they progress and get to 30% design, it's potential to find out that, you know what, this isn't the best alternative at 30%, and we go back to a different alternative.
Yeah.
But we can't get to that answer until we start putting in the work associated with the survey, reviewing of the environmental concerns, reviewing this with other state agencies.
What, so Steve, you hear that, you're gonna be riding your bike in 10 years? I hope you are, bro. So as relative to funding, if we go that route, which is what we have to go, I mean, this is all pie in the sky, you know, if it's not funded.
Exactly.
Federally. So, but that also includes the more involved you get with infrastructure versus just a road bed, that's more frequent maintenance and more costly maintenance and escalating costs of materials, right? So then how certain, what has been of our experience relative to ongoing funding for projects like what you believe you're confident, so thanks Sean for the zero. Because that's a big concern too.
But let me
right?
do this, but if we let Mark go through, I think he has 2 more slides.
Okay.
And then I'll circle around, that'll give me.
Yeah, that's all great questions though. So just sort of in summary, we believe that on behalf of the Capital Region Council of Governments that we've identified, again, knowing that there's no perfect alignment, that we've identified the most practical and feasible one. And I think it deserves additional due diligence and move to the next stage. But yeah, you know, we believe that it met the goal of, you know, connecting to the Farmington County Heritage Trail. It's mostly off-road that children can ride. It connects local facilities, it connects the elementary school, it connects businesses. It's attractive and I think we can make it an award-winning project and protect the Farmington River at the same time. So thank you for your time and I'm happy to answer questions, yeah.
Well, I think Chris had a question on the floor, which was what's gonna happen if we end up owning this in terms of the maintenance? The elevated structure, if it was built out of concrete, it's gonna be built to withstand the elements, it's gonna be something with a life of 35 plus years before we get into maintenance on it. If we do something with the wood decking, we're looking at probably a 15-year lifespan at most, depending upon the usage, in which case, yes, there would certainly be some responsibilities.
Tom, the DOT boardwalk picture that I did show, that was designed for a 50-year lifespan.
50.
Lifespan, I'm talking before, I'm gonna say we're gonna get about half that before we have to do some level of maintenance.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Spackle a few cracks.
Yeah. Tom, indulge me, typical, what's the setback? 40 feet from a sidewalk in town typically on a property? R40 zoning, how far is the front door from a sidewalk in town typically?
50.
40 feet, 50 feet?
Not in Terriffill.
R40's 50.
Alright, it's 50 feet, right? There's your number.
50 to the road and then the
sidewalk
sidewalk would be another 10 feet off that, so it'd be 40 feet. So if that's the number we wanna use, that's.
Is that the same for Terriffill?
But Terriffill, yeah,
It may not be R40.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
It's closer.
people park their
regardless
cars.
of where the trail goes or not, one thing I think people are forgetting is that 20 feet is like a side yard. When you have a private single-family residence, most areas you're lucky if you have a 15 or 20-foot side yard, you have no control truly over much of what your neighbors do. When you have a road in front of you, you have 25 feet from the center of the road coming on towards your property that the town has control over. I don't even have 20 feet from the center of probably from Elm Street to my couch. So you're talking about a condominium complex, you're talking about something that will help the community. We are not the only place in Connecticut or even in the East Coast that has this kind of situation or proximity or requires studies.
I just wanna I hear what you're saying, cause I understand, but I would like to let Tom to get up there, cause we have a lot, I think, more of questions to come up. So
That's it.
thanks, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Why don't
Answer my
why don't
question,
you?
I was just, I'm trying to listen to the concerns in town instead of me. I mean, again, I live in an apartment, so I have 0 feet, but.
I understand from my understanding of what this vote does tonight, I mean, from what I understand is that this allows us to take the next steps to understand what the actual right next path is.
That's exactly
And
right.
I don't think
Might
anyone
wanna-
on this board is comfortable with 20 feet, I don't know, speak for
Right,
myself.
and I'll be honest, originally the resolution didn't have any distance.
Okay.
But again,
Is that better or
understanding
worse?
and again, I think putting something in there makes some value.
I think it's also, yes, we, you know, as a group, we often hear from, we hear from residents who were impacted locally by, you know, the solar project was something that we heard from you know, like a distilled group of residents where 99% of the rest of the residents of town were not affected. It was super to that. We heard from the folks on Hot Meadow with and the Ensign neighborhoods, you know, their impact this year, yet 99% of the rest of the town isn't. So, but we don't behave like that. We are listening to the 2 or 3 people. So, and I think that these are real concerns. But I hope that we correct 2 things. Words are dangerous, right? And I'm one of the biggest offenders of that. You know, fast tracking, we're not fast tracking, we have to be on some track. So whether it's, we have to be on a track to move forward to get information to make knowledgeable decisions. So this board, I don't believe, is fast tracking to rush a decision. We're on a track to get information to help make a decision. That doesn't, by moving in an expedient manner, doesn't mean we're voting in favor of it. That's not how we behave, number 1. Number 2, I think that part of this process, the vote to move to do something, certainly is around environmental impact. We live in Connecticut, let's be real, we live in Connecticut. Do you think the town of Simsbury is going to, we have to go to get environmental, we don't know what the environmental impact is, so we can't say there's going to be an environmental impact. That those terminologies are put out there into conversation. We don't know that. We certainly, I don't think as a town would ever violate the guidance given to us by the arbiters of environmental impact. So let's get to that point, you know? Let's get to that point and speak with intelligence and information and knowledge, and not with just hearsay. That's what the 2 things I would say.
Did you want to touch in on what the next step of the process would be?
Right, I just wanted to add on to that, because the next step is, and I wanted to say, I just did this in Plainville. Plainville, CROG applied for, you know, something like $16 million in federal funds through the RAISE grant program, federal program. DOT kicked in another 14 for a total of $30 million to finish the Beeline Trail. And they went to the town of Plainville and they said, well, before we do anything, we need a resolution. And we didn't have an alignment. We had a corridor, Woodford Avenue. And it's a really wide road and we're gonna road diet it, but they didn't know if the trail was gonna be on the right or the left side. But they passed a resolution, you know, to move forward to the next step. This just happened a month or 2 ago. But for here, the next steps is, you know, a resolution. And then that gets you into a couple different options. In all likelihood, the kind of money we're talking about is probably gonna be a DOT project. And right now, the DOT is putting their money where their mouth is, and they are not requiring the 20% match on federal funds from the municipality. They're coughing it up with state funds. So on the East Coast Greenway only, statewide, the East Coast Greenway multi-use trail construction is funded 80% federal, typically, and 20% state. So getting in line is hugely important. And so a resolution puts you in line, number 1. Once we get into that, we can initiate preliminary design. Preliminary design in DOT speak means 30%. In order to go from nothing to 30%, lots of things have to occur at the DOT process. Survey has to be done, wetland impacts, wetland flagging, wetland delineation report, SHPO, cultural resource review, archaeological review, phase 1A report, phase 1B report if it's required, tribal coordination with the federal tribes. All of this has to be done, the NDDB with DEEP, etc. All that information is gathered, and then at 30% design, there's another public informational meeting, another chance for the public to offer input. During that entire process, they're meeting monthly with the town and feeding into it. And at any time, the town of Simsbury can say, we don't want it, we don't want it.
So this vote, if we take a vote tonight, doesn't commit us to a
No,
particular.
no. This is just to go to the next stage of the process.
So let me ask you the question a different way. When would the design be final? Like when is it? When is that decision?
Good question.
Like what year is that?
So
hypothetically speaking.
I can say typically on the TA program, which I work full-time during the week for DOT on the TA program, it is typically a 2 to 4 year process for design development to get all the way to final design. That's everything. That's all the regulatory agencies have signed off. That's all the right of way's been secured, authorized to advertise, and then you're off and running.
But then you need funding too, right?
They will not go to final design without construction funding in place.
So that could elongate the 2 to 4 years?
Right, but luckily for the town of Simsbury and any other community that I'm working with that's trying to do similar things is the money that's available now is significant.
But from putting folks' mind at ease is forget the money is what I'm, and I, trust me, I care about the money. Is tonight does absolutely nothing from a final design standpoint. We can end up with 5 at the end of this process, we can end up with 1 at the end of this process, we can end up at 16 at the end of
Or
this
none.
process. Or none, because we can't do it and it's not feasible. Right, so, and there are at least, give me a number, a dozen opportunities here on out, public input, hearings, discussions, back to this board for resolutions. Because in my history, we approved the grant at least once, if not 4 times here. To no fault of anybody, but there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of authorization.
Right now, the DOT is designing the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail through Plainville. And they meet with Plainville. To meet the federal requirements, there's not that many public informational meetings that are required. There's 1 or 2, but they meet monthly with the town. Be it the town engineer or the town planner or the full board, and they go to the city councils to make sure, are you okay with this, you okay with that? That's how it's playing out in Plainville right now. If you wanna talk to the town manager there,
No, I
we'd be
trust you,
glad
I
to
just, again, I'm just trying to,
chat about it,
again,
yeah.
very clearly, because again, I think we all 6 of us agree, and I'm sure you agree with everybody's concerns tonight, but there's no way to answer those questions.
To me, I see the
without this
resolution as permission to look into this zone further. That's how I look at it.
Case in point, you saw how many design alternatives they looked through. I'll be honest, they did a great job of looking at things that we hadn't considered. We originally thought we were going from Curtis right up along the river.
That's what we've been talking about, right, for 10 years,
Exactly right, and I truly believe we listened to the residents, we pushed and found a different alternative. It's not perfect, but it's a different alternative that certainly when we looked at the scoring, that took into account the impact on the river, impact on people, the safety of the trail, that one scored the highest. There's still the potential if, as we get through this process, there is a roadblock for whatever reason, there's other alternatives that then rise to the top.
I have a question for Tom.
Yep.
So some of us were at the forum on March 30th, 6 months ago, right? We heard there was a packed room at Terrafell Cafeteria. Since then, we have not necessarily been involved in the process. Some of us had walked the trail before that, right? So the question I have is really to look to you as our professionals and speaking for us. You've been representing us with the town to the members of Governor's Bridge and with people in Terrafell and also with the Farmington River. And so I ask you, like, seeing the plan here, have you heard enough? Like, are you confident in what you've heard that you're being fair to everybody that's been part of the process, that this process is really for the greater good? You know, I know there's a few homes impacted and things like that, but overall, is this representing the best alternative after considering everybody in the mix?
I think it's a tricky question, I think it's tough, because again, I've met with most of you here at one point or another. And it's a concern because again, this is a conceptual design.
Okay.
And it's hard to say, you know, where this is exactly gonna land, and that's why again, putting in some sort of protection certainly makes sense. I mean, I talked to Sally before the meeting, I understand her concern for the river, we've done a couple of walks through the alignment, I understand your concern with your deck. We wanna find the best alternative, and I think the only way to start ruling out what can't be done or what can be done is to start stepping forward to the next point, and by no means is this a final design. There is nothing that's a fait accompli. This is just how do we start ruling out what can't be done? How do we start finding out what's the value of some of this work?
And these groups will be involved throughout the process
as much as they want.
Will we be? Yes, right.
Will there be ways to have you know, how will the communication take place? Will there be something that is put out regularly or updates on the website so that people are able, without just me calling you all the time, to actually know where we are in the process?
It is a good question, because one of the things that typically happens when we're doing engineering designs is they start and they go. And all of a sudden they come, here's 30%. And even for Adam and myself, we see it at intervals. We don't see it weekly or daily. So I think what we would try to do is set up what are some key points that we could have public information meetings, wherever that needs to be. And I love the idea of walking the trail.
You have already, right? I mean,
We have, and many times.
No, you haven't. You haven't. the trail that you walked was the crushed.
Excuse me, we're, sorry, yeah, we have to just kind of maintain some decorum.
It's tough not to,
Yeah.
we're sympathetic.
Okay.
Alright, we don't have this on the agenda, we have to move to add it to the
Yeah,
agenda?
we have to move it to add it, so I wanted to make sure Tom had his words and then I was gonna ask for that motion. Tom, you said you had some things to add here, or are you
No,
all set?
I think, like I said, I think we could build in points to bring in more public engagement.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
think one of the things that again has been a challenge is we are at conceptual design right now. I can't stress that word enough, it's conceptual. And we don't have the answers. And I you know, it's tough to say that we are listening to what the concerns are, and that's where that's gonna get pushed back on the designers, the final design. I think Mark would tell you I pushed on them quite a few times about changing things and pushing things.
Okay, alright, do you wanna move to add that?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys coming.
And any more questions from our board? Do you wanna do that?
Yeah, I move that we add the resolution, the preferred alignment to the agenda as item
A1?
A1.
Yeah, can we do that and sneak it in there, Tom? Is that legal?
Yeah, you can do that, A1.
Okay.
I made the motion.
Okay, I'll second it. Any more discussion on that? I just wanna thank CROG for all the work, and I think it's like a time, there's a lot of Fed funds out there, state money. CROG's been working hard with us, it seems like an opportunity if we can at least be in the mix. It's a good time to do that.
Agree.
So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that is item A1. Okay. So thank you for that. For Selectmen's report, I'm really not gonna give one tonight.
Bless you.
I'm just gonna skip it. I'm just gonna say one thing is we are working on the town manager hire. Appreciate everybody that came out last night. It's not an easy decision. We are all here as volunteers and working to make the best decision that we can for the town. That's all I'm gonna say. Lee?
Thank you, Wendy. A couple of brief reports from the departments. Number one, the Farmington Valley Health District is hosting a flu clinic at their office at 95 River Road, Canton, on Wednesday, October 11th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Both adult and high-dose vaccines will be available for everyone 18 of ages and older. And the CDC recommends everyone ages 6 months of age and older to receive their flu vaccine annually. Number two, the library, the Friends of the Simsbury Public Library annual giant book sale will be held this weekend at Simsbury High School. That's this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. All proceeds support the Simsbury Public Library. There will be thousands of books to choose from. From our Culture, Parks and Recreation Department, registration for winter ice skating lessons for children and adults at the Simsbury Farms Rink will begin on Sunday, October 1st at 8 a.m. Online at simsburyrec.com. Also, the Simsbury Recreation Department is currently accepting registrations for the middle school and high school after-school ski programs. Winter is coming. That will take place this winter. Please get more information at simsburyrec.com. Seats are limited in both programs, so do not wait to sign up. From our Public Works Department, they are hosting the next Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day at their facility at 66 Town Forest Road, coming up Saturday, October 7th. Collection is held in conjunction with Avon, Canton, Farmington, Granby, and Suffield, and provides residents of these towns with an opportunity to dispose of items that cannot go into the regular trash. We ask all participants to access Town Forest Road from the Stratton Brook Road side. And more information is available at the simsbury-ct.gov Public Works pages, Household Hazardous Waste Collection. That's my report.
Okay. Selectmen liaison and anybody? Heather?
You covered my library one, so I'm good.
Okay, John?
Public safety got pushed to October.
Okay, Amber?
Lee already mentioned the flea clinic, so I'm good.
Eric? Chris?
Culture Park meeting tomorrow night, cannabis ordinance will be.
Will you be there tomorrow night? Oh, great, perfect. Okay.
Wendy, could I add in relationship to
Tobacco use.
Tobacco use.
in relationship to that, the question was asked whether or not two versions of that ordinance could be sent to public hearing.
Mhm.
The answer is yes,
Oh.
that is possible. So you can get input from the public on both versions.
On October 11th, I'll just put a
On
plug in.
October
Well, we
11th,
haven't
yes.
set it yet.
Oh, we
No,
didn't.
it's not, yeah.
Oh, we didn't
We're
set
gonna
it
set it
yet,
tonight.
okay. Oh,
It hasn't been noticed yet.
Okay.
but it's not in here tonight.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
It's not in the agenda.
Oh, it was. Oh, no, didn't we
Yeah,
set it?
yeah, we
set
set it to
October
October
last
11th.
time, yeah,
We did
no,
set
you're
it.
right, we said it last time, you're right, Wendy.
We haven't
Yeah.
officially
We
sent it.
have not officially noticed.
We haven't
We haven't
officially
noticed.
noticed it in the paper yet, so if something has to significantly change, we can pull it before the October, so it won't go out of the meeting.
Alright, so now we're getting into selectmen action, right? Like we've got our reports done here.
It's a new record.
Okay, so the first item up that we've talked about for quite a while before is a proposed memorandum of understanding with the Main Street Partnership. I am looking for a motion effective September 27, 2023 to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Simsbury Main Street Partnership, the version with the Simsbury Main Street Partnership draft wording on there, and authorize interim town manager Lee Erdman to execute the agreement.
I'll second that and friendly amendment with the mutually agreed upon language that I think is amenable to everybody.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, and any, no abstentions. Okay, so it's 4-2, so that motion passes. Should the Board of Selectmen wish to appoint a liaison, so I would recommend that we, like we did last time, the Economic Development liaison should be appointed as the liaison to the board, which like we did with public safety. So I move effective September 27th to insert Heather Getz as the Simsbury Board of Selectmen liaison to the Simsbury Main Street Partnership Board with a term expiring on December 4th, 2023. Get a motion for that?
Move that.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in
I
favor?
will too.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that passes, and then if the board will move effective just September 27th to authorize payment in the amount of $50,000 to the Simsbury Main Street Partnership.
Move that.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so there's 2 opposed, so that passes. Okay, so now we can move on to item. Pardon me?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for being
Thanks
here
for
for
sticking
all
around.
this time. It was a long one. Okay, so now we're moving on to the East Coast Greenway study, and Amber had a proposal to amend the resolution. Do we want to put in a number there that's more than 20 feet as discussed up here or do we wanna leave it how it is? Just wanted to get some sort of final thoughts on that.
I mean, it could potentially influence the design even at 30%, right? The number we put in here, Tom?
That's correct. At 30%, you're gonna know where the trail is.
So, I mean, again, if we wanna take a stand, now is the time to limit it.
To the feet, but we still don't really know the repercussions. I'm open to.
Feel kind of hamstrung because I don't, it's an educated, is that what it is?
It's an educated guess. I mean, again, I was going off R40, but as this point out, there's different zoning and there's much
Right.
less, so.
Is there any wording we could use to make it less
I mean, minimally invasive or?
minimally
I
invasive?
think minimally invasive and respectful to property owners.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
And again, I can assure you as myself and Adam, there will be at the design table, we will.
I think that accurately
That's
conveys
very
our
good.
sentiment that it needs to be minimum invasive and that we would evaluate that, right? And if we have to pay more for it, I think we should be willing to make that decision for or against weighing the pros and cons of it.
Okay, I think that sounds, so I'm gonna ask for a motion effective September 27th to endorse alternative alignment 2 as a preferred corridor with the changes discussed tonight for the East Coast Greenway study.
So
Just-
I'll
I'll make that motion, but I also would really like to take anyone who spoke here, I wrote your names down up on coming by and looking at your properties and taking a peek at that with you. So we can be in touch and let me know a good time.
Tom's about to tell you to read it.
I was gonna suggest the motion should be to endorse the resolution in the packet.
We don't have to read it?
I don't think you have to read it.
Oh, so it says it endorse the alternative, but just to endorse the resolution?
A resolution with your amendments made.
Yes.
I would suggest would be the motion.
That's what she made. Right?
So I'm
And that's
reading-
what I'm seconding.
Okay.
We don't have to read the endorsement or the resolution?
No, it's just the motion that
He
you made.
wants me to say to
Instead of endorse
Yes.
alternative alignment two, endorse
the resolution that is included with the changes as the preferred corridor for the East Coast Greenway study. So make of that motion again.
And I'll second that motion again.
Okay, any further discussion? Further discussion, or was that all those in favor? Was that
I just have a statement to make, that's all.
Okay, then that's part of the discussion, so then make it.
So again, as my term is coming to an end, I don't have much, more, you guys suffer more sermons from me. But I also participate in this conversation in another town, but I'm sitting in that place, I'm sitting in your seat, interesting enough. And absent a sea turtle, anything goes in that town. You just need to trust me, for whatever that means, that the sincerity that this board and this town is taking to talk through this is monumental relative to the experience I have in my other community, where there is no voice for the homeowners. There's no, there is no, there are police in the room at town meetings, in probably the safest town you could possibly ever want to be in. And that just talks about, do people feel safe coming into in that room as citizens and speaking openly and honestly and emotionally. They do not, in that town, they do not invite town staff to participate in conversation and be part of the dialogue. So why am I saying that? Is that trust this town, trust our form of government, trust the people who are volunteers up here, trust the people who are in this building, that they are listening to you. And I assure you that your experiences is far different than other people who are sitting in the seats that you are in other communities in this country, and you've got to believe that. And I'm one of them who's sitting in your seat, and in that town, I feel powerless. So I just want you to say that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Okay, we're on the exciting.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work.
Again, thanks to everybody that's
Thank
here.
you for coming out for the comments.
Thank you. We're now into the tax refund request, so
This is the best part, don't leave.
That's what I was trying to say, so exciting. Motion effective September 27th, 2023 to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $7,847.40 and to authorize interim town manager Lee Erdman to execute the tax refunds.
Move that.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So now we have this anonymous donation for home heating bills. This goes to the Keep Simsbury Warm program. It was a very generous donation of $21,000 plus. So I'm going to ask for a motion effective September 27th, 2023 to accept a donation from an anonymous donor in the amount of $21,073.20 for the purpose of assisting local residents in need with their home heating bills.
So moved, without thanks.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, very
Phenomenally
good.
generous,
Yep.
as is this one.
Okay, another donation through Renaissance Acquisition. This is money for the police department for their community services revenue fund. A motion effective September 27th, 2023 to accept an anonymous donation to the Simsbury Police Department in the amount of $21,073.19 to be used for such unrestricted charitable purposes as its governing board shall determine.
Move that with our sincerest thanks again.
Did you second that?
I seconded, but I just wanted to make sure that's the very large donation and it's to Sean's, we're very
Very thankful for
It's the
the
biggest I've ever seen.
$21,000 to $21,000 donations, very nice.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So now we have a proposed donation from the Boswell family, which is a kind of a regular occurrence here. This is Chris Boswell in honor of her late husband Brian Kosher. And this is for an AED thing up by the platform tennis and pickleball courts, which hopefully it doesn't get used, but it's a good placement of that.
Very thoughtful.
Yeah, it's a motion effective September 27th, 2023 to accept a donation of an AED unit and outdoor secure enclosure case valued at $2,849 from the Boswell family.
So moved with our thanks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you to Chris Boswell. A donation, here we go, from the Friends of Simsbury Farms who have their golf outing this Friday, just giving them a plug while I'm here. This is a donation for the farms for a greens roller. A move effective September 27th to accept a donation of $5,333 from the Friends of Simsbury Farms to partner with the town of Simsbury and the Simsbury Farms Men's Club on a greens roller to be used on the golf course.
Move that with our thanks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have another one from the Friends of Simsbury Farms. This is for a pond aerator on the third hole. A motion effective September 27th, 2023 to accept a donation of a pond aerator pump / fountain valued at $9,020.60 from the Friends of Simsbury Farms installed on the number 3 pond at the Simsbury Farms golf course. Motion for that.
Move that with our thanks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I have many balls in that water, I think.
I do too.
A donation, this is for the water fountain, this is also from the Friends, to put in a water fountain at our new playground once the new playground is done, right? Ask for a motion effective September 27th, 2023 to accept the donation of an ADA accessible water fountain and bottle filler valued at $6,620 from the Friends of Simsbury Farms to be installed inside the renovated Simsbury Farms playground.
Move that with our thanks.
Second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have a public gathering permit, we don't usually have.
Amending,
Oh,
excuse me a second.
Yeah.
There's 2 donations related to the greens roller.
Oh.
You
Oh,
passed
sorry.
F and you need to act on G.
Gee.
Men's club.
Oh, there's a men's club greens roller too. There's 2 of them.
Oh, sorry, I missed one.
I thought it was a redundancy, yeah. Okay.
Oh, me too, I
Yeah.
took it out. Sorry, I gotta find that one, so. Okay, request the greens roller from the
Can you
men's
just-
club. I
Can you
did
just can you just say, is it the same motion and then just change the?
Yeah, here it is, I found it. Donation from the Farmington Men's Club for a greens roller effective September 27th to accept the donation of $5,333 from the Simsbury Farms Men's Club to partner with the town of Simsbury and the Friends of Simsbury Farms and the greens roller to be used on the Simsbury Farms golf.
Move that with our
course.
thanks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I apologize for missing that one.
I did too.
So we do have a public gathering permit, and the reason we're doing this one is because it's a new event, right? It's a 5K with the Orthopedic Associates of Hartford. That will be on October 7th, starting at the Performing Arts Center. The motion effective September 27, 2023 to approve the public gathering application on behalf of the Simsbury Performing Arts Center and to authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit for the OAH 5K at the PAC.
Move that.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item, I think this is an annual grant, I believe, so kind of annual or
every 2 years.
every couple of years, so it's normal business as usual. Is that a way I could say this?
Yes.
It's a grant for the State Homeland Security Grant, and it's with Mike Berry, who's our Emergency Management Director. It comes from the feds. I'm gonna just read the motion and ask for this motion effective September 27 to approve the federal fiscal year 2022 State Homeland Security Grant Program Memorandum of Agreement, which makes the town of Simsbury eligible for regional allocations made through the Region 3 Regional Emergency Planning Team. Further move effective September 2023 to approve the attached resolution that authorizes the town manager to execute all documents related to the grant award.
Move that.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And there was a lot to read in there if you wanna read it. A few meetings ago, what meeting was that, Tom, where we talked about, do you remember this came to us?
Which
I'm sorry, I'm on the scheduling the public hearing for the acceptance of the I mean, it's not relevant, I was just
It was July 10th?
in July.
Yeah, sounds right.
Okay,
July or June? One of those.
Well,
Soon as.
it was somewhere this summer. The Inland Wetlands Commission asked us to make this change to the wording. So in order to make that change to the wording for the large and complex projects, rather than limit it to a numeric figure, we have to schedule a public hearing. So this is really just to schedule the public hearing. So we need a motion effective September 27, 2023 to set a public hearing to receive public comment on the proposed amendments to Town Code Section 85-6.1 for 6 p.m. on Monday, October 23rd, 2023.
Move that.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks, George.
thanks, George. The next item is the explanatory text that will be accompanying the ballot question that we've talked about and approved a couple meetings ago for the referendum on November 7th related to cannabis. So I'm gonna I don't have to read it, right? Yeah, ask for a motion effective September 27, 2023 to authorize the issuance of the explanatory text as presented.
Move that.
Somebody want a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then
It
next,
just quickly, it just appears below, correct? It appears
know,
below in the ballot structurally?
or is it out in the,
Was it out in the
that
hallway?
sign? I don't know.
Don't know, but I can follow up and
I'm
get,
not an approver, but I'm just trying to, is it?
I can follow up and get you
Alright,
a
yeah, fine.
response.
Yeah, like those big charts, right?
Yes, and because sometimes I think in the past there's like a distilled version of it, of the explanation is actually on the ballot, but that's all, alright.
Okay, so the next item is the review of the minutes from September 11th, if anyone had any questions.
Did we vote? Yes, we did.
Oh, did we vote?
We did.
I derailed you.
We voted. It's getting a little bit much here.
We did.
So the minutes, I did have a comment on the minutes. I don't know if I can find where it was, but we talk about the public hearing for cannabis. I didn't say anything that said we were referring it to the Parks and Rec, or we were gonna delay the hearing till October 11th because of the referral to Parks and Rec, so I thought maybe the minutes should reflect that. Does that sound like an okay deal to everybody? Can I have
That was intent, yeah.
can I ask for a motion to make that change?
I'll move that we make that change as suggested.
Okay, second, anyone?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those minutes are amended. I think we're done here, so I'm gonna.
Can I just
Yeah.
comment quickly
Oh,
on
yeah.
the communication, the
Sure.
memorandum?
Sure.
I know it's buried in the packet, but this is huge. We saved a substantial amount of money through the due diligence of our finance department, our town manager, this board, and the Board of Finance, and all the diligence we put in. 3.47 is a lot more than we've paid, but it is substantially less than perhaps the 4% we thought we were gonna get.
Yeah.
And that is real savings to our taxpayers and additional capacity and or money we never have to spend, so.
Well, and that's also savings that won't show up on the budget, that
Correct.
won't get acknowledged at budget time.
Yeah. I mean, Amy's memo articulates it's 256,000, that's a substantial amount of money. That's several police officers, right? That's a lot of positions, that's a lot of funding, as Chris talked about. Earlier, there's not a lot of money that moves around. This is why we are so diligent with our finances, so diligent with our process. So we should be really proud of this as a community.
And I will say at the Board of Finance meeting, they discussed this last week and they
Yeah.
gave a lot of accolades to Amy and everybody for what they did there.
Yeah, this
It
is just.
also points to sort of the concept I've been pressing is that we hire professional, experienced individuals to lead certain departments, and removing us from the conversation and trusting those people that bring us. This is proof of that.
So now I wanna ask for a motion to move to executive session with Attorney Dee Crescenzo and the town manager.
Is it okay if our consultant sits in?
Mike Gillette.
Sure, and with Mike Gillette also.
Move that.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Alright, thank you so much.